Today's video is about anger and what to do when in your interaction anger arises. Most of the time, we think that we need to manage anger. It's like some willful creature over there that we need to keep in check. And that's how we live with anger. That's the relationship we have with anger. But that's not the case. That's not how it should be. Because when you have that type of relationship with anger, that you're managing it and all, it's because you don't know it. You haven't integrated it. And so what is happening is that you're trying to deal with it without knowing its nature, without knowing what it's doing there in your life. Because maybe you think that it's just randomly there, and it's not. So here in this video, I'm going to illustrate what anger is about through a video, so that you start realizing that in your life and using anger as your ally. So some time ago, I was talking to a friend of mine. And as we were talking, we were organizing a meeting. We were supposed to get together the day after, and we were just going through the details, what time, where to meet, etc., etc. And so as we were talking, at some point, I realized that I was starting to get annoyed. And at some point, I was getting to anger, right? And the first thing that I did, as most of us do, is that I told myself that there must be something wrong about me, that this anger is bad, I shouldn't be angry, and I started stuffing it down, right? Then I started listening to what she was saying and what she was doing, because I was like, maybe she said something that made me angry, but I couldn't find anything. In that moment, what she was doing was that she was organizing everything, and she was telling me, she was actually thinking for me, right? Because she was saying, oh, I know that you prefer it this way. I know you prefer meeting in this city. I know you prefer it at this hour, not at that hour. So, she was being nice, right? At least that's what I thought in the moment. She was being nice. She was thinking for me. And so why is this anger coming up? Because the more she said it, the more she was thinking for me, the more angry I was becoming in that moment, right? So before I go on, let me just pause here and let me explain to you what anger is about. And then I'll go back to the story. So first of all, let me start with emotions. Emotions are, if you want to think about emotions generally, think about them this way. They are carriers of a personal truth of yours. So they are there, they are part of you. They're bringing in their own very specific way a personal truth. And so the whole idea is that you don't manage them, but you take in the personal truth. How? Imagine if you're hungry, right? When hunger comes up, you don't manage hunger. You don't want it to go away. But what it is, it's an energy that is very specific, right? That you feel in a very specific way, that comes up in a very, very specific way in your body. And then it gives you a certain information, which is you need sustenance, right? And so you don't, you don't manage it, but you listen, you take it in and you listen to it. And the more conscious you become, you start even listening to the little details that it will give you. Because it will give you, it's your body telling you what it really needs. So you'll go to the supermarket and start feeling that, I'd rather the apple or something else instead of this or that. So you really even start using that hunger to know exactly what your body wants. And I want you to see that this is the same thing with emotions. Every one of them has it shows up in a very specific way. It shows up in your body, right? Not here, in your body. When you have an emotion, it's somewhere in your body. It shows up in a very specific way. And then when you feel into it, when you listen to it, it will talk to you. It will give you a very concrete information, just like hunger does. And then the moment you take steps towards, based on that information, that's it. It goes away. It's done its job. It has nothing to do there. It just vanishes in a second. Healthy anger stays with you for a few seconds, for maybe a few minutes. It comes and it goes. That's it. It's not something where you explode on the other person, or where you explode or you implode. When you explode or implode, it means that you've stuffed it down. There's all this built up energy, which is all the energy that you didn't listen to. It builds up and you shout at someone, or you implode inside, right? That's how anger comes out. When it's unhealthy anger. But when it's healthy, it comes, it tells you a very specific information. You feel it, you feel a burning sensation. It gives you, as you feel into it, you start realizing what it's about, because it talks to you through your body. You get the information, and then you take the necessary steps to maybe there's a need, maybe there's something else. With regards to anger, what it will tell you is a personal boundary, right? So, I have a feeling I'm going all over the place. Let me start again with anger. Anger is an emotion that is telling you that in that moment, there may be some violation that may happen or is happening. And that what is being violated are your boundaries. So there is a fear, a powerlessness that you'll always feel behind anger, right? So I want you to know, okay, powerlessness, I have no choice, which means I have no choice, and a violation of a boundary. That's what it is about. That's what anger is about. And so when it comes up, you feel into your body, right? You see where it comes up. It comes up in the form of a burning or something like that. It's up to you to see, to realize it. And when it happens, you will feel a sense of there's some violation that is happening. And in that moment, as you realize that, you will see that anger is like a guard dog that is pointing you to a boundary that you're not aware of most of the time. A boundary that you're not aware of. And in relationships nowadays, because most of us have no clue about our own boundaries, there's a lot of violations that are actually happening due to our ignorance, right? And so in most cases, when you get angry with people around you, it's the moment when you can learn about your boundaries, and you can use that relationship as a way to learn about your boundaries and the other person's boundaries. So it's an incredible moment. So let me continue with my story. This is exactly what happened with us, with this friend of mine, where in that moment, as I tried to repress the anger, because the normal way of thinking came to mind, where all anger is bad and I'm doing something bad. But then I remembered and I was like, oh my God, no, that's not it. Anger is more than that. And I remember what anger was about. I didn't even have to think about it. The moment I remembered, I turned to me. right? I turned to my anger. And as I turned, I felt it. As I felt it, I realized automatically what was happening. So as I told you before, she was thinking for me, right? Because she was, telling things like, okay, let's meet tomorrow in this city because you prefer it. Let's meet at this hour because you prefer it, and so on and so forth. So she was saying all those things. And my rational mind came to the conclusion that that's okay. I mean, she's being nice, right? But the rest of me did not feel it that way. Why? Because in that moment, there's a pattern that formed. And the pattern was, I went into the child and she went into the mother. So she was thinking in my stead. She wasn't even asking me what I needed, what I wanted. It wasn't even there. She knew better. That's what she was doing. And I went into the powerless child. And I told myself, oh my God, of course she knows better. She's being nice. She knows better. So I'm not going to listen to myself. I'm not going to listen to what is coming up, to the, there was already an irritation, frustration that was, it was so slowly building up. Then I wasn't listening to that. I was repressing it. Because she knows better, right? That's how a child thinks. Because if she's, it looks so nice, so generous, like she's thinking for me. But what it felt like was energetically, she had penetrated me. She was in my space and she was thinking for me. She was thinking in my stead. And of course I didn't like that. And I wasn't supposed to like it. Like, that anger showed me that that's not what I want. Because my boundary is, I think for myself. I stand by my needs, by my wants. I am the one taking responsibility for them. And then based on that, I communicate and I interact with other people. And then when I do that, it's a communication and it's an interaction of partners and not a child and mommy, right? So that's what was coming up. And in that moment, if I just let the energy do its thing, so I don't take responsibility for my anger, it will, bark at her. It will growl at her. It will attack her, right? But the whole idea is that if I take it in and make it part of me, then that part, it just tells me the information. And the moment I start saying things like, that's what I did, I stopped. It wasn't in that moment, because I didn't do it in that moment. It was afterwards that I realized what was happening. Sorry. When I realized what was happening, I was able to understand the dynamic and to shift it. I shifted it in me and I didn't let that dynamic happen again between us. I made it clear that I think for me, right? And so in that moment, anger goes away because it's done its work and I have asserted a boundary there. Do you see how in that moment I did not have to manage my anger? I just needed to understand it. I needed to integrate it. It became part of me and automatically I knew what to do. I took the necessary steps afterwards. And I didn't have to lash out at people and so on and so forth. Because lashing out means that that's repressed anger. That's not healthy anger. And that's why many times when it comes to anger, there's so much we have vilified it in a horrific way. And so there's a lot of pent up anger in us. And so when we become angry, it just takes over, it possesses us. And we automatically think that it's just crazy. It's something that we need to manage. But the more you manage it, the worse it will become. And the whole idea is to let that anger out. So you can, you should, an exercise that you need to do is to every day let it out, like shout, get consciously angry, let it, write down everything that comes up. Walking, you can use that, take that energy in, bring it out consciously, and try to vent as much as you can when it comes to anger, so that afterwards, the more you do that, the more that anger at some point becomes healthier and healthier, and at some point all that pent-up anger just vanishes, just goes away, right? I also wanted to add that this is very important, that anger is also very important in relationships, because it helps you with your boundaries, but both boundaries, in the sense that for me, it helped me deal with my child, and I realized that I needed to become responsible for my own boundaries, and I couldn't just sit there and let other people think for me, right? In her case, what she needed to do was that she needed to realize why in that moment she left herself, and she wasn't thinking, for herself. She wasn't standing by her boundaries, but she was going into other people's boundaries and thinking for them. So what's the reason? Why is she doing that? And it's definitely not because she's generous, she's nice. It has nothing to do with that. Most of the time, especially in women, we're not taught to think for ourselves, because that's too egotistic. That's selfish. We should all think about other people. That's what we're taught. And so she was too scared to show her boundaries, to stand by her own needs and wants, because that's bad, that's selfish, right? And so what she was doing was that she was going towards me, she was thinking for me, she was being nice for me, so that I could do the same for her, because that's what she needed, right? And this is one of the biggest manipulations that we do, where we are nice for the other because we expect something, and that there's a hidden expectation. It's not like we're honest about it, right? Because maybe if we're honest, then there's a transaction happening. Why not? But there, it was definitely very hidden. And it was hidden even for herself. So through that interaction, you see, she can, heal that part. She can start standing by herself. And she can see that I want her to stand by her own boundaries. I want her to stand by her needs and wants, etc. So I'm actually showing her something that reassures her. And so I hope this is clear, because as you can see, when you start working with anger and you start understanding why it's there, you start connecting with it, you can incredibly create a very strong relationship with yourself. A relationship that will it's a relationship that will empower you. And then what will happen is that you can use that anger in relationships with other people. And if they are ready for it, if they choose to, it will empower them too. And now suddenly this trigger, this anger, becomes something that deepens your relationships, that nourishes them, that makes you be yourself in the moment. So let me know if you have any comments, any questions, and if you want to work on your emotions and personally on your emotions or anger. There's a link down below. I'd love to work with you, and see you in my next video.